section by True Generation. True Generation, please come up. Y'all know y'all spots, your sections. Be very careful. Go, Myra. You come up front. Come up.
You know what it is. Kiss on. Yeah.
Hello? Testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Hello? Hello. Is mine's on? Hello?
You guys switch the phone.
Go ahead.
This is Miss Production.
What you're going through. You're gonna make it. Y'all gonna see it through. Hold your head up. Put a smile on your face. It's another test. It won't last always. Get ready. Get ready. For your blessing. Your blessing. Get ready. Get ready. For your miracle. For your miracle. Get ready. Get ready. For your blessing. Your blessing. Yasharallah. Come this way. 2, 3. Kwam Yasharallah.
It's mixed on the beat. This is Mixed Production. It's mixed on the beat. This is Mixed Production. It's mixed on the beat. This is Mixed Production. It's mixed on the beat. This is Mixed Production. It's mixed on the beat.
All praises.
Shar Paryam.
Shar Payan. That's how you say happy Purim in the Hebrew. Shar Payan. Say it again, Ashar Paryam. Happy Purim. It's that feast, y'all. When we was able to go against our enemies after our forefathers, they prayed and fasted for 3 days. So my question is, who proclaimed the 3-day fast? Yeah, for Purim. Who proclaimed the 3-day fast? Ladies. That's right, Esther. Even though she was being instructed by her uncle Mordecai, when he took her the information, she was like, me and my maidens, we're going to fast 3 days and have the children of Israel also to fast for 3 days during this feast of Purim. So this is one of them feasts that was won through fasting, through obedience to the Most High. So let's go here, y'all. Let's go to Esther. Esther chapter 9. We're going to start with verse 17. Because I know sometimes we always say, oh, Purim, just about giving gifts. Some people will say, oh, this is our Christmas. But Christmas, did they have to fight? Purim, we had to actually fight and destroy our enemies when the decree was given for us to protect ourselves. Do they give us that decree today? Nah, they make you go buy a weapon. But in order for you to buy a weapon, you got to get a license. Or if you want somebody to protect you, you got to call the police. Mind you, calling the police, if you're in trouble on the spot, it's going to take them 15 to 20 minutes to get to you. Because you got to make that call. The dispatcher going to dispatch to the actual officers that's in the field, and then they have to come to you. And they coming to you with their guns out, right? So why is it that you can't protect yourself? But here, during the Feast of Purim, we were able to protect ourselves with our own weapon and look after our own selves, right? That's why it's a lot of crime today, because, you know, they got the gun laws, right? They talking about taking the rifles and all of that, take the guns out of the hands of the criminals, but the criminals don't care. But they make it hard for the average citizen to get a gun to protect them. So let's get into it. Read that out. Esther 9, verse 17.
The book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 17. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they.
So, quick question. Zaywan went over it last night. What happened on the 13th day? Anybody know? What happened? What happened on the 13th day? Huh? The destruction of Nicanor. All of this is happening simultaneously. Our forefathers, they was out there fighting in a battle. Purim came a couple days later, right? So that's what happened. But let's go here. Finish reading that.
On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
So why did they make it a day of feasting and gladness? Let's get into the scriptures. Let's find out why. Let's go to Esther 3 and 6.
The book of Esther, chapter 3, and verse 6. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had.
So the one who thought to lay hands on Mordecai was Haman, which we're going to find out about him. Go ahead.
For they had showed him the people of Mordecai.
Mm-hmm. Who were the people of Mordecai? The Jews, right? Go ahead.
Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus.
He was just going to destroy the men, the soldiers?
Destroy all the Jews.
He wanted to destroy everybody, men, women, and children. Go ahead.
That were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai.
Mm-hmm. Go down to verse 13.
Verse 13. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish.
So who did they send these letters out against? Go ahead.
All Jews.
All the Jews. Who else?
Both young and old.
So they didn't care who you was. You was an old man or a grown man, young man or a young woman. Right? Go ahead.
Little children and women.
So they wanted to kill our children too. That's why I said this is a feast of wartime. We actually commemorating us going to war and winning the battle. Right? But go ahead.
In one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
Mm-hmm. So they wanted to do all of this to us. They wanted to take everything from us. So with that, let's go to Esther 4 and 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 1. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes.
So
And-
Mordecai, he knew everything that was happening. Like, man, he tore his clothes. What did a lot of the priests do when they were in anguish? They were in hurt. They were in pain because a calamity came upon their people. They tore their clothes. They fasted and they prayed. But go ahead.
And put on sackcloth with ashes.
You ever put on sackcloth? You ever seen the old potato sack bag? The burlap bag? Yeah. Man, that stuff is irritating. You ever I'll be in the attic a lot and stuff. You ever touch that the installation? Man, it's irritating. It get in your skin. It feel like needles is pricking. That's how that sackcloth is. Go ahead.
And went out into the midst of the city, and cried with a loud and a bitter cry. And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews,
So there was mourning amongst us, right? Go ahead.
and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it to her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai, and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hatak, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hatak went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews, to destroy them.
So they wanted to destroy us. Do y'all think it's fair that other nations want to destroy us today? No, it's not. Go ahead.
Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king, to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hatak came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again Esther spake unto Hatak, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death.
So Esther is now Ahasuerus' husband. Yeah, Tom's going to get into the story of Esther tomorrow, but Esther is now the wife of the king of the Persian and the Mede. That's why we read this part right here. But go ahead.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter.
And there was a decree that went out because Vashti didn't come to the banquet, that anybody that comes to the king unannounced will get put to death. But go ahead.
That he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape into the king's house, more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer.
So they went up. Let's get the answer that she gave. Go ahead.
Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days.
So here you go. Esther proclaimed a fast for 3 days. All of Israel did this, not just one person, but all of Israel. Go ahead.
Neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did all according to all that Esther had commanded him.
So Mordecai went away and did this. But let's find out who Mordecai is. Purim is also called Mordecai's Day as well. Let's go to Esther 2. I want 5 through 7.
Esther chapter 2 and verse 5. Now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, and the son of Shemi, and the son of Kish, a Benjamite,
So Mordecai was a Benjamite. Go ahead.
who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity, which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away.
So here you have the children of Israel in captivity. Go ahead.
And he brought up Hadassah, that is Esther.
So everybody know who she is now, right? That's her real name. Her Hebrew name was Hadassah. But she was given another name, Esther, in the Persian and Mede captivity. But go ahead.
His uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter.
So Mordecai was the cousin of Esther. He raised her up. So with that, let's go here. Because Mordecai also was a righteous man. Stay in Esther, go to verse 21 and 23. Let's see what else he did.
Chapter 21. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, two of the king's chamberlains, Bigthan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth.
So here you have the king's Ahasuerus. His chamberlains, they was the doorkeepers, right? But they were wicked. They was plotting against him. But let's see what Mordecai did. Go ahead.
And sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen.
So they wanted to kill their own king. They was plotting against him. But Mordecai heard what they was going to do and told it to Esther. Go ahead.
And Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore, they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles before the king.
So here you have Mordecai, a righteous man, doing righteous deeds. How many of y'all would tell on somebody that's going to kill somebody? Y'all be like, nah, no snitching. But snitching is actually when y'all do a crime together and you tell on your buddy. That's what snitching is. Like what Tekashi 6ix9ine did. They was all in the crime together. He told on his buddy, so he could get a lesser thing. But Mordecai, a righteous man, he told on these wicked men who were going to put the king to death, which was a noble thing to do. So with that, let's go here. Let's go to Esther. Let's go to Sirach, chapter 21, because Mordecai gave good advice.
The book of Sirach, chapter 10, verse 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered.
So wasn't Mordecai doing righteous things for his people? Not even just for his people, for the kingdom that he was under subjection to. He told them, hey, these two wicked men are going to plot to kill the king. And he told them that was a righteous thing to do. Do they do that here today in America? No, they don't. They'll tell their secrets when it's time for an election to get all the dirt on the other person, but they still don't do nothing to him. Did they do anything to Trump recently? How many times they impeach him? Twice, right? You can only be impeached if you're doing wickedness, right? But he never did no time. He did crimes, but no time. So Mordecai was indeed a righteous man. So let's find out what else Mordecai didn't do. Let's go to Esther chapter 13 in the Apocrypha. 9 through 15. In your Apocrypha, they call it the edition of Esther. Let's go to Esther chapter 13, 9 through 15.
The rest of the book of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 13, verse 9. And it reads, saying, O Lord, the King Almighty, for the whole world is in thy power.
So this is what happened when Mordecai rent his clothes and his garment. He started praying to the Most High. But go ahead. Let's see what he said.
And if thou hast appointed to save Israel, there is no man that can gainsay thee. For thou hast made heaven and earth, and all the wondrous things under the heaven. Thou art Lord of all things.
So let me ask y'all a question. In reading the script, haven't y'all found that the prophets, they always remind the Most High who he is and his power? When y'all pray, do y'all do the same thing? Because it seemed like every time they did that and showed, like, Most High, you magnificent, you wonderful, you great, the Most High came and showed out for Israel. But go ahead.
Thou art Lord of all things, and there is no man that can resist thee, which art the Lord. Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest, Lord, that it was neither in contempt nor pride, nor for any desire of glory, that I did not bow down to proud Haman.
So Mordecai didn't bow down to Haman. How many of y'all would have bowed down to this man, even though it was the king's decree for y'all to do so? This man didn't do it. He didn't bow to no man or nobody. So with that, hold that. We're going to go to Exodus. Exodus 23, 3 through 5. Then we're going to come back to it. Exodus 23 through 5.
Exodus chapter 20 and verse 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
So Mordecai said he bowed before no man, right? So go ahead.
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, thy power, am a jealous God.
So Mordecai was doing the just thing by not bowing down to the wicked Haman. So let's go back there.
The rest of Esther in the Apocrypha, chapter 13, verse 12. Verse 12. Thou knowest all things, and thou knowest, Lord, that it was neither in contempt nor pride, nor for any desire of glory, that I did not bow down to proud Haman.
So Mordecai didn't bow to no man, nobody, right? He only paid reverence to the Most High. Go ahead.
For I could have been content with goodwill for the salvation of Israel to kiss the soles of his feet.
He said, I could have been content. I could have just kissed his feet and received salvation of Israel, but no, I'm not doing that. I'm only going to bow to the Most High. I'm not bowing to this man. Go ahead.
But I did this, that I might not prefer the glory of man above the glory of the Most High.
He paid reverence to the Most High. Go ahead.
Neither will I worship any but thee, O Yahweh.
Wasn't he keeping the commandment? A righteous man, right? But go ahead.
Neither will I do it in pride. And now, O Lord Yahweh and King, spare thy people, for thy eyes are upon us to bring us to naught.
So other enemies, he was praying like, man, they want to bring us to naught. Nothing, but go ahead.
Yea, they desire to destroy the inheritance that hath been thine from the beginning.
So we are the inheritance of the Most High. That's a beautiful prayer, right? So with that, let's go here. Let's go to Esther 4, 1 through 17. Yeah. Esther chapter 4, verse 1. Start verse 1.
Esther chapter 4 and verse 1. When Mordecai perceived all that was done Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter cry, and came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was great mourning among the Jews, and fasting, and weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maids and her chamberlains.
So just about all of Israel laid in sackcloth and ashes. It wasn't just Mordecai and Esther. It was a lot of Israel doing the same thing. Go ahead.
So Esther's maids and her chamberlains came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hathach, which went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him of all that that had happened unto him, and of the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them.
So Haman wanted us to be destroyed because he had power to do so, right? Go ahead.
Also, he gave him the copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. Mm-hmm. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hathach, and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of this to put him to death.
So the decree was to kill whoever came before the king, right? Go ahead.
Except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place, but thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
So here you have Esther, now the queen of the Persians and Medes, right? Go ahead.
Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer. Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish.
So she fasted those 3 days so she can have the power from the Most High to go before the king and get that mercy. But go ahead.
So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him.
Yep, right. So let's go here. Let's go to chapter 5 and verse 9. Come on, 9 through 14. Yeah.
Chapter 5 and verse 9. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him.
So before this happened, Haman, he went to a banquet with Esther and Ahasuerus. That's why he was joyful. But when he saw Mordecai, the Jew, he wanted to kill him, right? But go ahead.
He was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife.
So Haman was being in a position of power. He had to refrain himself from doing what he wanted to do to Mordecai. So he went home, and this is what he did when he went home. Go ahead.
And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him among the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared, but myself.
So he was happy about this, right? But go ahead.
And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king.
So he didn't know that there was something else that was planned for him. But go ahead.
Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.
So he was like, man, this Jew sitting at the gate. I'm the second man next to the king, and this Jew still sitting here. Man, I gotta get rid of that dude. Go ahead.
Then said Zeresh his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of the 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
So Haman was an Edomite, and his decree was to kill Mordecai and all the Jews. So with that, let's go here. Let's go to Esther chapter 6, 1 through 10. Because it backfired on him, right? But go ahead.
Esther chapter 6 and verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles.
So the thing that happened to the king, he couldn't sleep. He was like, I gotta do something, but let's see what he did. Go ahead.
And they were read before the king, and it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. And the king said, What honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, There is nothing done for him. And the king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him.
So here you have Haman. He coming. He got the advice from his family. Like, man, we're going to go hang this dude. I made gallows. But here you have the Most High putting his spirit on Ahasuerus to remember and do something righteous for Mordecai. And I'm going to show y'all that according to the scripture. The Most High, he will bless you. He'll prepare a table before you in the eyes of your enemy. But go ahead.
And the king's servant said unto him, Behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, To whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, which the king useth to wear.
So he thought this was going to be put on him. So he giving him an advice like, man, let this royal apparel be on me. Because you know when you the man next to the man and you got his signet on, everybody's now going to respect you, right? So what did this do for Mordecai when it happened to him? His respect level went up even higher. Like, oh, man, he's a higher up. Let me not just treat this man any old type of way. But go ahead.
And the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal, which is set upon his head. And let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal, whom the king delighteth to honor, and bring him on horseback through the city, through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor. Then the king said to Haman, Make haste, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew.
So the same person he wanted to kill, the Most High blessing him for the whole world to see it. Like, he going to ride around in this royal apparel. He going to be on the king's horse. And you, my second-hand man, you're going to have to parade him around, even though you hate him. So with that, let's get Psalms 23, 1 through 6. Because how many of y'all would want to walk your enemies around and parade him? And he said, make haste. And Haman did it because he knew the king would put him to death for disobeying his order. Psalms 23:1.
23rd Psalms. The Most High is my shepherd, I shall not want.
So the Most High is our shepherd, right? Go ahead.
He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters.
Mind you, this is a turbulent time for Mordecai and Israel. There was a decree put out to kill us. So read that again.
He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters.
So even though they were being persecuted, the Most High, he was like, I'm gonna give you a little something so you can rest at ease and know that it's me doing this. Go ahead.
He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil.
If Mordecai was scared, you think he would have got on that horse? He got on the horse. Go ahead.
I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies.
So he was put up high in the presence of his enemies. Y'all know that's the Most High. Don't he do us the same way? Go ahead.
Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Most High forever.
So we dwelling in the house of the Most High. The Most High said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am in the midst. Best believe the Most High is in the midst of us today, y'all. So with that, let's go to Esther 6. I'm on 11 through 14.
Esther chapter 6 and verse 11. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the city of through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, Thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all the...
So he was disgusted because he had to parade Mordecai around. Go ahead.
And all his friends, everything that had befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh, his wife, unto him, If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall.
He said, read that again.
Then said his wise men and Zeresh, his wife, unto him, If Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall.
They knew that he was falling. Haman is coming down at this time because this anointing that the Most High put on Mordecai is coming from the Most High. That's his protection. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him.
This happened, which you're going to find out. Go ahead.
While they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains, and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
So this was the second day, the banquet that Haman was talking about. Go ahead. Let's get that in chapter 7 and verse 9. Actually, you can start at verse 1.
Chapter 7 and verse 1.
Yeah.
So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, What is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the kingdom. Then Esther the queen answered and said, If I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition.
So she said, let my life be given me at this petition. Because what was the decree against the Jews? To be killed, right? But Esther, who was Hadassah, she never revealed her nationality, which that's what Mordecai, he advised her to do. But go ahead.
And my people at my request, for we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we have been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Queen Esther the queen, Who is he? And where is he? That durst presume in his heart to do so. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is the wicked Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
So he didn't know who she was. I mean, he knew that she was the queen now of the Persian Medes, but he didn't know her nationality. He didn't know that she was a Jew. But go ahead.
And the king, arising from the banquet of the wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen.
So now the tables turn. What did Haman's advisor say to him?
For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was.
So now he's begging for his life, right? Go ahead.
Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon.
So now he getting hung on his own devices that he had for Mordecai to be hung on. Ain't that the spirit of the Most High? Are you making weapons of war for us to die, but now you're going to get hung at your own weapon? Well, go ahead.
So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified.
So he was hung. This wicked Haman was hung. So with that, let's go to chapter 8, verse 1.
The book of Esther, chapter 8, verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen.
So everything that Haman wanted to take from us now is being given back. Even his house was given to the Jews. Go ahead.
And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite.
Because the decree was to kill all the Jews. It was letters that was sent out. So she was still in anguish over this. But go ahead, let's see what happened.
And his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out of the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king.
So remember, she was not supposed to go before the king. So here she went before the king unannounced. And he held out his scepter. So she was accepted. But go ahead.
And said, If it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, that it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then King Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, Behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman.
So now everything is being divvied out. Esther now has the house of Haman. Go ahead.
And him have they hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name, and sealed with the king's ring, made no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews.
So Mordecai now wrote this, and he has the signet of the king. So his words are going to stand. Go ahead.
And to the lieutenants and the deputies and the rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing,
So everybody got this word now. Go ahead.
according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries, wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together.
So let's see how when he gave them this decree to gather themselves together. Because don't they tell us not to gather now? You got even people saying no camp, right? But let's see how they was able to gather together in captivity. Go ahead.
And to stand for their life.
They was able to stand for their lives. Do they encourage us to stand for our lives today? No, let's all be one people. We the ones getting killed, murdered in the street, not only by our own, but by our enemies as well, right? Food poisoning, air poisoning, water poisoning. But they don't want us to stand by ourselves. They want us to stand with them. They're not really helping us. But here we was able to stand on our own. Go ahead.
And to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish.
Wait, hold up. We was able to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish. That means put all opposition to death. That's why I said this is a celebration of war and life. Because not only did they pray, they also fought and killed once they was given the decree to protect themselves. Go ahead.
All the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them.
Wait,
for a prey.
hold up. Some people say that's cruel.
Right.
Read that again.
All the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women.
Little ones and women. They wasn't sparing nobody in the time of war. They was killing everybody. But go ahead.
And to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely, upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people.
So this was given by Mordecai with the signet of the king. Go ahead.
And that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies.
Didn't Tazai want to talk about the Avengers last night? Said the little ones, right? Well, we was able to avenge ourselves. Why they don't let us do that today? They want us to continue to die, continue to be in captivity, and subservient to them. But go ahead.
So the post that rode upon the mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan, the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white.
So now here you have Mordecai dressed up again, right? But go ahead.
And with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day.
So we're going to have a feast and a good day, y'all. Go ahead.
And many of the people of the land became Jews.
Wait, hold up. It said many of the people of the land became Jews. Only way you could become one of us is how?
Convert.
Huh? Be born into it. So they just started practicing our customs when they said they became Jews. But go ahead.
For the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
The fear of who?
The Jews fell upon them.
On all nations. They feared us now because we were able to protect ourselves. Which all of this came through fasting and praying and us obeying the Most High. Even though we was in captivity. So what do y'all think we got to do here today? Same thing. Fast and pray even though we're in captivity. And trust in the Most High. Because he the ones that's going to give the victory. Right? So with that, let's go to chapter 9. 1 through 16.
The book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to their contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them.
So now we have rule over those who hate us. Isn't that going to happen in the kingdom? Right? In Isaiah 14, it talks about us having rule over our enemies. Taking up in Revelation, talk about those who kill with the sword must be killed with the sword. Those who took us into captivity must now go into captivity. It's all going to happen again. But go ahead.
The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people.
It said no man can withstand us. So when we in our power, when we in subservient to our power, the Most High, can't nobody withstand us. We're forced to be reckoned with, right? So go ahead.
Verse 3, and all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and officers of the king helped the Jews because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them.
So Mordecai was now honored, right? He was one of the king's chamberlain now. So everybody fearing the Jews because of Mordecai. The same way they feared Haman because of Ahasuerus. He was the king. But now this power is on the righteous men, right? Go ahead.
For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out through all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies.
Hold up. They let him live?
They smote all their enemies.
They gave him peace treaty.
Smote all their enemies.
They took him a sandwich.
Smote all their enemies.
They killed all their enemies. This is the Feast of Purim, y'all.
Bring it out. Clap it up.
Go ahead.
The Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter, and destruction, and did what they would do unto those that hated them.
Why we can't do that today? They never tell us they never read these stories to us. They read us all the other fairy tales. But they don't give us this truth, right? Well, go ahead.
And in Shushan the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men.
Go ahead.
And Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Paratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmasta, and Arisai, and Aradai, and Vajisatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, slew they.
So they killed all of Haman's kids.
They
got put to death. But y'all see how Israel was rolling? Did the women complain about us killing our enemies? No, because it prospered them, right? Did the young children complain about us killing our enemies? So why do our people complain today? Because they don't have the understanding. They don't know what thus said the Lord and how we dealt with our enemies. But this is why we have lessons to show who we are and how our forefathers dealt with their enemies after praying to the Most High and keeping His laws, His statutes, and His covenant. But go ahead.
But on the spoil laid they not their hand. Verse 11, on that day the number of those that were slain in Shushan the palace was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further?
So Ahasuerus, he said, like, y'all already killing people. What else do you want to do? You can go further, right? Go ahead.
Or what is thy request further? And it shall be done.
Mm-hmm.
Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows.
All his sons were killed. Go ahead.
And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons.
Dang. All 10 of his sons gone.
All his generations.
All his generations gone. No inheritance left for him, right? No offspring left from Haman, right? Lifted him up dead and hung him on there, right? Yeah, because they got slain with the sword. Go ahead.
Verse 15, for the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Dar, and slew 300 men in Shushan.
Wait, hold up. They still killing people, right?
Khan.
Go ahead.
But on the prey they laid not their hand.
Mm-hmm.
But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies.
It said they stood with their lives. But after the way they stood for their lives, they did what? Let's go here. Let's go to First Maccabees 3 and 21. Then we're going to come back here. We're going to show you how they stood for their lives. Go ahead. Yeah. But that's in the story of Gideon. When you go in the story of Gideon, that actually came out of the scripture too. Go ahead.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 21. But we fight for our lives and our laws.
That's what we was fighting for. That's how we stood up. Mm-hmm. We got to continue that same spirit today. So let's go back there to Esther.
Back to Esther, chapter 9, verse 16. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies and slew of their foes 70 and 5,000.
Didn't I just read that? They fought in battle. Go ahead.
But they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Dar, and on the 14th day of the same rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
And we going to feast and have gladness today, y'all? Go ahead.
But the Jews that were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
Which is today. Go ahead.
Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month of Dar a day of gladness and feasting and a good day, and of sending portions one to another.
So with that, I want to say Happy Purim.
Happy Purim.
Go ahead. Go ahead. But go ahead. I want to see what happened, though. Because even though they had Purim, this is what they said and did. Even though in the time of gladness. But keep going.
Verse 20, and Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month of Dar, and the 15th day of the same, yearly, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day.
So it's a good day today, y'all. Go ahead.
That they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them.
So Haman was an enemy of the Jews. But you can get that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And had cast pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return it upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows.
That happened. Go ahead.
Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which that had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained, and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing.
So this day is still being kept. It has not failed. We keeping it according to the writings of Mordecai. Go ahead.
And according to their appointed time every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation.
So all praises. We still keeping it in our generation now. Go ahead.
Every generation, every family, every province and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus.
So Ahasuerus was over all the known world at that time. 127 provinces. That's a lot of land and a lot of people to be governed over, right? Well, go ahead.
And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed.
So we're keeping it in the time appointed now, right? Go ahead.
According as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed, the matters of the fastings and their cry.
So they fasted, they cried, they prayed, they fought. And now we have Purim, which is the day of Purim, the day of Mordecai. And with that, I say happy Purim again to you. Question? Go ahead.